Good morning, everybody. We know that we live in a remarkable world at a remarkable time. But I think, and the research our team has been doing suggests that this is even more profound than we can imagine. I really do believe that we find ourselves right on the verge of a new renaissance. And that's quite a bold statement to make. There's a thing called historical exceptionalism, which says that everybody at every time in history believes they're living at the most remarkable time of history. But I think that there is evidence to show that we are actually living at that time. And historical students and professors who study these things have identified some of the key forces that actually brought the Renaissance on. This is 500 years ago. And I think that we can see some very clear parallels, some very clear echoes in history. At the beginning of the previous Renaissance, there was a massive shift in communication technologies, specifically with the printing press, that allowed more people to get more information further and faster and cheaper than ever before. And of course, we know that this is a characteristic of our age as well. Not only with the World Wide Web, which is 10,046 days old today, but also with our mobile technologies. The fact that we have this power in the palms of our hands, in our pockets and our handbags. And we have them with us all the time. You did not leave your phone at home, did you? You wouldn't be here if you didn't have your phone. You would have gone back for it. It's the first thing you see in the morning. Most of you take it to the toilet with you, which is why you should never use anybody else's phone, by the way. It's the last thing you'll see at night, you know. Even if there's a partner in the bed next to you, it's good night on this side, and then one quick update. And good night on that side as well. So communication technologies. One of the other technologies that defined the previous Renaissance was a change in our forms of transportation. It was the countries that built the big ships that could carry more things, that could transfer those things around the world. Now, that probably is still a digital theme today, but, you know, we are on the verge of changing transportation. And I don't have the time today to tell the story of what driverless cars are going to do for our world, but they are going to change our world forever. And it is about to happen. The first driverless taxi actually worked last Tuesday in Singapore. Picked up a person from the airport in Singapore and took them through the hotel in the middle of the city, a completely driverless experience. In the previous Renaissance, we had a massive increase in trade. This was probably the defining feature of the Renaissance that brought massive amounts of money into Western Europe and set it up. And that, of course, is characteristic of our age as well. We have seen a flourishing of international trade and multinational organizations over the last few decades. And just there are lots of things we could look at, but maybe one that's significant for some of the people in the room here is sources of capital. For many hundreds of years before the previous Renaissance, the way in which money was transferred was very strictly controlled. And people who had products sold them to people who wanted them and had the money. And there was no other way of transferring wealth. And it was controlled by the Medicis out of Venice. But in 1531, in Antwerp, in this building, a new exchange, a bourse, was created, what we would today call a stock exchange, that allowed people to sell bills of passage for goods they didn't own but had rights to. And we know this today as stock trading, and we essentially understand this is the basis of the modern capitalistic economy. Right now, we are facing a massive shift in banking. The future of banking and the future of money has never been as different as it is right now, with everything from crowdsourcing and crowd funding all the way through to blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies. So I believe that we can very clearly see that we are at the verge, just on the edge of what could possibly be one of the greatest shifts in human history. We look back on the Renaissance and marvel at it. And I think the future generations will look back on our era and marvel at it too. But we marvel at two things. We marvel at the successes, at the wonderful new industries and businesses that emerged and the new opportunities that this Renaissance brought. But we also laugh and marvel at the failures, at the companies that had thought they were unassailable and then came crashing down, at the South Sea and poppy bubbles and the mess that was left behind. And so where we find ourselves today is at a critical point in history where we have to realize that there are new rules for success and failure in our world. New rules for success and failure in your industry, in your company, but also in your job, the profession you've chosen and the way you choose to do it. There are ways that will be successful in the future that have not existed before. And there are things that you have done for the last 10, 20 years, the things that have built your organizations to where they are today that may not help you at all in the very near future. And so it is really an absolutely critical thing for us to be able to look at these new rules for success and failure. So our team at Tomorrow Today, I'm part of a group of people who've got together over the last few years and built a research capability. We've got a full-time research team. And our team at Tomorrow Today has looked at this. And in fact, it was fascinating to hear Ryan Hogarth earlier and some of the things that he's seen as he's looked at the digital customer, because that really chimes very closely with what we've seen as we've looked at what we like to think of as the DNA of this digital world that we live in. You see, if you go and look at some of the organizations that are beginning to show signs of success in this new renaissance that's emerging, we discover that there are some things that all of them are doing. They're all very different organizations. They all do very different things, and they're disrupting different industries in different ways. But if you look beyond some of the surface level and you look at the DNA, you look at the mindsets, the attitudes, and some of the underlying principles that these businesses are applying, and you discover that they're all doing just a few things and they're doing them very well. We can learn those lessons and bring those lessons into our businesses. So for insights into how the digital landscape and the digital customer is changing our world, Ryan has got a fantastic message for you. For a message about the DNA of your business, for the way in which you strategically need to be thinking at a leadership level, at a structural and organizational level, we would like to suggest that we can look at these organizations and learn some early secrets. Some of these guys are not even a decade old yet. They're not even 10 years yet. And they are household names and worth billions. So there's definitely worth looking at something here. Now, what we can do is package this in both a workshop type of environment where it's probably best for your team to start from the first principles that our team did. To just look at this and say, well, what is it about these various companies and apps, and what is it about them? And to discover that. That might be a great conversation for you to even have with your team. In a keynote environment, obviously, we dive straight in and give you some of those suggestions. So let me just, for the sake of it this morning, I've pulled out one or two of them to get you to see this. Almost all of those organizations focus on personalization, on making sure that you don't have a one-size-fits-all experience. In fact, you've all got your phones with you. Most of you have got them on the desk in front of you. Some of you have them in your hands. You are using them right now. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's the digital world. It's a new renaissance. I wasn't calling you out. But I want you, if you look at your phone, to ask, is there any other human being in the world? There are 7.5 billion other people. There are 9 billion phones. Don't ask me how that works, but it's a true fact. Is there any other phone in the world that is quite like yours? That has all the settings set up the way you've got them, that's got the color scheme and the apps, and there is not one single phone in the world that is the same as yours. You have been allowed to entirely personalize that experience. And this is an expectation that you now have of every other organization that you engage with. You expect to be able to set the settings according to the way that you want to set them. Now, we know personalization works because the greatest marketing campaign of the last 50 years proves this to us. In terms of the results that they got, nobody has done it better than this. Because I know people who do not drink Coke, who have never drunk Coke, who will not drink Coke, but they have their Coke bottle in their house. They bought a Coke bottle. Why? Because it was personalized. It had their name on it. You've just heard Andy talk about the importance of personalization in sales. He is 100% correct that this is an absolutely vital part of what we do. We empower customers when we show them that we know who they are. And we give them that sense of, I am known, I am understood, I am connected with. And when you empower your customers, well, then you're in a great space. And in my opinion, this is the only purpose behind big data analytics. Some of your companies talk about big data all the time. You've got these big analytical things. But if your big data is not delivering personalization, you're wasting your time, and I don't know what you're doing with it. Because it is about knowing you and knowing that you are different to you, and therefore reducing you to a market of one and speaking to you. We need to personalize, and we know we need to personalize because it's the expectation of the DNA of the digital world we live in. So what can you do? What can your company do to personalize more for your customers? What can you do as a boss to personalize more for your team members? What can you do just as a person to personalize what you do as a contribution in your business, as an employee, as a team member? What can you do as a parent to personalize for your children? Or as a child to personalize the experience of your parents or your friends? I just think it's a mindset. It's an attitude. I don't think it's one you need a lot of explanation for, because I think we get it. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to say. We get this. We get this here at a deep level. And so any company that gets it and shows us that they get it gets our attention. Does that then make sense of what we're trying to do with this here in building our framework? Now, guys, you're going to have to help me out here a little bit because you didn't start my clock. So if you want to work out where I am and tell me what I'm going to, that'll be great. Otherwise, I'll just take 20 minutes, just keep going. From now, that's fine. Let me put some words to these pictures, because I think that these words will make sense to you. Personalization, we've talked about. Ease of use. Ryan talked about that earlier, didn't he? Immediacy. I want to be able to connect with you. I don't want to have to work hard to try and find the contact button on your page or to wait for you to contact me. It must be in my phone. If you're not in my phone, you're not there. You're not anywhere. Okay, I'm not wanting to go somewhere else for this. It's here in my hand. It must be constantly upgraded. I checked this morning. From the time I went to sleep last night to the time I woke up this morning, I've got 9 updates available. I get excited for updates. There's new features, something different. Strava, the thing that I use to track my running, just went from a black background to a white background. At last I can see it in the sunshine. It's fantastic. It's a tiny little thing that's going to make all the difference to how I'm working. Collaboration, you see the list. And this would be a list that we could take your team through, that we could talk through, and that we could look at the implications. That we could look at, not just from a philosophical perspective, this makes sense to me, but so what does it mean for me? And what does it mean for our team and how we work? Let me give you another example that would be very practical. Social. Now, I'm not talking social media. And whether you've got a Facebook page or a Twitter page or whatever. 5 years from now, these things might be there, they might not be there. Some will come, some will go, new ones will emerge. That's not the question. The question is, do you have a social mindset? Let me explain what I mean. My family and I have just spent a number of weeks on holiday in Europe, and we used Tripadvisor quite a bit to select not only the places we stayed, but also some of the activities that we did. How many of you have used Tripadvisor to make a travel decision? Almost everybody in the room. Now, why would you use Tripadvisor? I mean, Tripadvisor is reviews by people you've never met. And every hotel we stayed in on this holiday had both lots of 5-star reviews, but also 1-star reviews. What do you do with those 1-star reviews? Those of you who've used Tripadvisor, if you see somebody's got a 1-star review, do you say, oh, well, I can't go there? What do you do with that? No, you have a look. You read the 1-star review to see whether, was it a completely once-off thing that is not going to actually happen to you, or is it an idiot? I mean, let's be honest. The idiots, right? Literally one of the hotels that I went to, the person, their review was, we arrived late. It was 2 o'clock in the morning and the potato salad was cold. Sorry, is there part of your review that's missing or part of your brain that's missing? This is not a problem. I can ignore your 1-star review and I can see, hang on, this place has got lots of 5-star reviews. But why use Tripadvisor? Why can't I just go to the hotel's website themselves? Some of you have just laughed at me. Like, of course the hotel's website's not the place to go. They're going to tell you they're brilliant, right? I mean, I hope they do. Imagine going to a hotel's website and the hotel says, yeah, we're human, We get it right most of the time. Sometimes we get it wrong. We have good days. We have bad days. Hope you come on a good one. You wouldn't go anywhere near that hotel. Of course the hotel's going to show you their best photographs ever. They're going to tell you they're the greatest. So we ignore their website and we go and look for other reviews. We use the social system that our new Renaissance is building for us. I really do believe this is one of the hearts of our new Renaissance, this interconnectedness of everybody everywhere. Okay, you get that, right? You understand that. Okay, so how many of your websites have social proof on them? A few, but almost all of the corporates in this room, your websites tell us how fabulous you are, and we know you're lying. You know you're lying too. And you know this issue because you've all used Tripadvisor, and yet not one of your corporate websites has incorporated this concept of social. Not one of your industries has worked hard to develop this social system around you. Banking hasn't. For most South Africans, the only place you go is Hello Peter. And that's not the place you want to go for social proof because it's the very worst type of your customer feedback you're getting. So you say you've understood it, you say it's easy to understand, and yet what have you done about it? And what have you done about it as a boss? What have you done about it as an employee? If you're looking for work, what have you done about it to enhance your CV? Where are all your online testimonials? Where are your LinkedIn recommendations? You see, we don't understand it, although we say that we do. Or we do understand it, but we're not doing anything about it yet because we don't realize how urgent the times are. New rules for success and failure, I'm not joking, will make and break you in the next few years. So we need to get this right. We need to get the DNA of a new digital era into our minds, into our hearts, into our souls, so that we do something with it. Now, Ryan earlier said that if we go through the whole day without talking about Uber, it won't be a real conference. So let me make sure that we do. Final example. You see, it's the cliche to say, our industry is being Ubered. What's the Uber of your industry? It's a great question. It's the right question. But most people have no idea how important the question is. You see, Uber hasn't even started yet. Uber don't want to take over the taxi industry. that's the least of their concerns. When you ask what's the Uber of our industry, you are asking a new Renaissance question. You are asking what is the deep heart of change in our industry. Here's why. How many of you drove here this morning? What's your car doing right now? You hope. Nothing. It's doing nothing. It is your least utilized asset of all. It's a waste of money because it's sitting down there doing nothing. If it was a driverless car, it would have dropped you off here in the morning and then gone done something useful with its life for this morning. Probably picking people up, carrying them around, moving things, earning a little bit of money for you. And then at 11:30 when you're ready to leave, it would be out here ready to take you home. If you're comfortable with that, then you'll very quickly realize you don't need to own that car. Because why does that car have to be the car that comes and picks you up at 11:30? Any car can. And so driverless cars meet Uber, meet the new world. Because if Uber owns every car, that's their goal. They don't want to own every taxi. They don't care about the taxis. They want to own every car. And if you want to own every customer in your industry, you need to get your head around the digital DNA of the companies that are changing our world. And you need to start building your future now. Thank you.